Wait, are you galloping?
Yeah, we're Calipers, aren't we?
No, it's a 3.4 metric calipers.
Calipers. Oh.
Speaking of calipers, we've actually done some measurements before, and we should be familiar with measurements like centimeters and millimeters, but sometimes we need a little bit more precision. So getting those measurements a little bit more precisely. Vernier calipers are actual instruments that allow us to read to the nearest hundredth of a centimeter, because before, millimeters were just tenths of a centimeter. What a vernier caliper scale kind of looks like is the one below.
Yeah, this one is greatly enlarged, but up here we'd have our readings in centimeters. So there's 0 centimeters, 1 centimeters, 2 centimeters, so on and so forth. And then to read exactly where we're at, we're going to note first this tick mark right here. So this first one on this little bottom slidey rule. And this one is right between those two, where this is 2.1 centimeters and this is 2.2 centimeters. So we know we're somewhere between those two. And our measurement has got to be like 2.1 something. Now what is that something? For the rest of this, we ignore those, and we're just going to look at these lines that we have here on this bottom rule, and we're going to specifically look for the one that lines up with the top. Now, like this one, for example, doesn't line up with either of those. And this one doesn't line up with anything either. If we keep scrolling along, we see like, oh, this one's pretty close, but not right on. And this one's pretty close, but not right on. And whoa, this one. That one lines up perfectly. And after it, again, it's a little off. So this is the one that lines up. This is the one that we're really after. And what does that tell us? Well, just like on a ruler for the millimeters, we've got like 0 millimeters and 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 3 and 4 and 5, so on and so forth. When we look at this bottom rule, it's done the same way, in that this is 0, and this is 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. We've got a 5, a 6, and this is a 7. So looking at that bottom rule there, we are at a 7. That's where it lines up. So this is 2.17. And units-wise, since it's a metric caliper, we're talking about centimeters.
Let's take an example of real life. Let's actually measure something with the caliper.
That's a great idea. Measuring something like this phone case can be done with a good old standard ruler to some degree of accuracy and precision. Ellie plays this on there. I'm not sure if I'm right at the edge perfectly, but I don't know, I'm pretty close in there. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Seems about right. And then with that measurement, I can get that I'm kind of at 7.5-ish. It's kind of weird. There's a little bit of overlap there, just because of the curve of the phone case. But that's what I've got. It's kind of hard to do with a ruler because I'm just placing it flat on the surface. Now with a caliper has these pieces that can grip the tool in between. Or if you want to measure the width of the gap, then this goes in that particular gap. But of an object, we're using these little grippy-doos. And I can slide this up and down, so I'm actually gripping whatever object I'm trying to measure, like, again, this phone case. And I place it like so. So I've got that between it. And then I can take in the measurement that is on there.
Let's take a look at that phone case measurement with a little bit of a closer look. Now, if I'm looking at this measurement, I can read the caliper and say, well, if this is 7 centimeters and this is 8 centimeters, then the measurement right here is between 7 and 8. So I know it's going to be 7 point something. So if I'm writing down that measurement, I will say 7 point something. Now, what is that first decimal place? Well, that first decimal place is found by looking at that orange arrow position there. I can see that, again, my measurement, or my orange arrow, that place where it lines up, is between this and this here. And what are those two lines? Well, let's take a look. If this is 7.0, this is 7.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So I have between 7.6 and 7.7 as my measurement. Well, because it's between the two, it's going to be 7.6 something. So that is how I will be able to determine my first decimal place. Now, my second decimal place, we end up using the values, or that little scale at the bottom here. I'm going to erase everything that I have so far. And we're going to look at those. Now, what our goal is here is to find a line from one of these bottoms, here, that line up perfectly with a line from one of these tops. So as I'm looking, this first one doesn't line up perfectly. The second one, not quite. Third one, getting closer. The fourth one here, ooh, baby. That one is as close as physically possible, and we could take a look at the other ones, and that's to the left, too much to the left, too much to the left, way too much to the left, way, way too much to the left, and so on and so forth. So our winning line that matches up as perfectly as possible is this guy here. And that is the one that's going to help us determine our second decimal place. Now, when we are trying to find that second decimal place, kind of like a standard ruler, that first tick usually represents 0. Because we're talking about our second decimal place, that's 0.00 in the context of it all, which means this would be 0.01, 0.02. This one's going to be 0.03. So the fact that we have our third line in, we are going to ensure that that means our second decimal place would be a 3. So overall, this measurement of the phone case would give us 7.63. But what are our units? Remember, this is a caliper, and it's a metric caliper, which means we are using metric units. And the units that we are using in this metric caliper are centimeters. So it would not be enough just for us to say 7.63. We need to make sure that we also indicate those units so that we have a better sense of what we're measuring.
We're going to tackle some examples. So here's our virtual caliper readings. These aren't actual calipers, but this is what you would see on one, right? Just like we saw in our example. Let us try reading these. And you can feel free to just try these right away if you want. There's 4 whole examples to try. You can pause the video and then see if your answers measure up to ours. In this case, I know I'm starting with a 1. So this is 1 point something. This first tick mark is happening between these two, where this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's 1.3 something. And the one that lines up is here. And this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So I get a 1.33 centimeters out of that one. On this next one, I'm not quite at 3, right? This tick mark's before the 3. So this has to be 2 point something. That first decimal place, I'm looking up here. I know that this is 5. This is 6, and that's 7. So we're after the 6. We're at least 2.6. We're not quite 2.7. And then for the rest of it, well, actually, I keep those there. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is where this thing lines up. So 2.66. And again, it's that. This one is giving us that, and this one is giving us that one.
And we need to be sure to remember our units.
Whoa, buddy.
That is a very common mistake because we get caught up with all the rules and all the ticks. So please be careful and don't forget your units.
Yeah, half of us just did that.
All right, let's take a look at these last two examples. Ooh, we're frozen. Boop. If you haven't paused already, this is the perfect time to do so because I'm switching colors to purple. All right, taking a look here, I am looking at my first tick mark here. My first tick mark exists between 6.0 and 6.1. So I know that my value of that measurement is going to be 6.0 something. And now again, what is that something? I'm going to look for the line that measures out perfectly, and I see this one here circled in pink. And if I'm going to figure out that decimal place, I know if this line represents 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are going to have 6.05 centimeters as my measurement on this caliper. Oh, too far. Last but not least, ooh, take a look at this one. My first tick mark here is really, really close to 8, but it's not. It's between 7.9 and 8.0. So it's going to be 7.9 something. Now, again, I'm looking for that tick mark in particular that lines up with my bottom rule and my top rule. And I can see that this one here is the one that does so. And again, I am counting up my tick marks on the bottom, starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we get 7.99. And that is, again, centimeters. Keep in mind that if we didn't get 7.99, like looking at this, it should make sense because we're really close to that 8.0, so we should get a decimal place that reflects that measurement. So hopefully these make sense not only in how to read them, but that in the answer that you get as well.
There is some practice work. Psych! It just says practice measuring things with vernier calipers. We'll be giving you some things to measure perhaps in class, but make sure you are familiar with this, and of course we'll provide you additional practice like these ones that we've done in these examples here.
Another thing to keep in mind is there's a quiz point.
Yes.
We haven't had a quiz this unit yet, so buckle up for our 3.1 to 3.4 quiz, and we'll let you know when that's going to be soon.
Okay, bye.